Keep that track. All of the training that we've done, all of
Morning.
Morning, everybody. Just doing a sound check. Can everybody hear me? Excellent. Thank you.
I can hear you, and good morning, everyone. And I just want to apologize in advance. We have to go to caucus at 10:30. That's what happens in June. You get late minute schedule changes, so I will be exiting before that. Thank you.
We'll try to be short and sweet then.
Progress.
If you don't mind, I just want to do a quick sound check on my end. We have problems with Zoom periodically. Can everyone hear me okay?
I can hear you fine, Jonathan. Good
All
morning.
right, great. Thank you.
Can I have the same sound check? Good, thank you, guys.
I did a Zoom last week where I was the person doing all the talking and I did it from home and I just disappeared from the screen for about 10 minutes. So that was really helpful. So I am in my office today. I'm not taking any chances.
Good morning, Ken.
Good morning.
Yeah, you want to start the meeting, but at an appropriate time, can I make it just a suggestion at the beginning here?
Sure.
We heard from Representative Diamond that he needs to leave at 10:30. to go to caucus. I believe they're in session. And I was just kind of wondering, since I'm hearing from from different people that the Republicans on the state government committee or the legislature are getting ready to introduce a bill. And I was just wondering if he might be able or could be able to maybe give a little bit of an update before he has to leave at 10:30 on what they're thinking in the legislature.
I can give you an update. That information is, we're getting ready to put forward a bill. As to the details of the bill, I can't really disclose anything at this point, but I will say that a lot of the concerns that have been offered here in the Election Law Advisory Board are being tackled in that. So when that language is finalized and comes out, I'm sure everybody will have some input on it, and we look forward to that. Thanks.
Great. I think that answers that question. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Representative. So staff, are we ready to get started?
Ready as ever.
All right. Then I will call the meeting to order and welcome everyone. Thank you all for being here this morning. And I believe that we're going to start with attendance. So Iman, I don't know who's going to do the roll call, but
Wendy.
Wendy, can you please do the roll call?
She was there.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, we have Commissioner Lawrence,
Present.
Cantz. Is the vice chair here?
Don't see him.
Okay. Christmas.
Present.
Cozy.
Present.
Daniel.
Present.
Deely.
Present.
Diamond.
Present.
DiGermo.
Here,
Herb. Houston. I think he's absent on emergency. Iconio.
It's Icona.
Okay, Klitz.
Here.
Laura.
Here.
Marks. Mr. Marks?
He's here, Wendy. He's
Yeah, I
muted.
know, yep, okay.
Sorry,
It's okay.
not quick
Maureen?
enough on the unmute.
Maureen? Okay, I believe that he was here too. Yep. Your mic is off. Mr. Moran, okay. I see you. Semich? Think you're good. Smith?
Present.
I don't see Spitzer. Sefi, I don't see Sefi. Okay. Is anyone here for Tartaglione? Oh, okay, I see you there. Thank you.
The Senate's on the
Yep.
right now.
Okay, thank you so much. Ursula? Good?
Here, yep.
Yep. Wenger?
Present.
Thank you. All joint state staff is present. Thank you. Have a good meeting.
Excuse me, Dan Vogler is present from Lawrence County.
Thank you so much. I gotcha.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner Lawrence, go for it.
Okay, thank you. Somebody go in there? No.
We want to make sure we're all muted.
Side in the other corner. Kim will take you back.
Okay, make sure you're muted. Make sure we're all on mute. Thank you.
All right, our agenda item for today is to discuss our first report, which has been sent out and circulated to everyone. So Yvonne, do you want to walk us through this and lead the discussion?
Sure. I will start with the suggestions and the comments from our last meeting about pre-canvassing, a word that I hope will fade in the past soon, and drafted a proposal that would allow counties to process ballots before Election Day. The proposal defines ballot processing And it would include everything from opening the envelopes up to and including scanning them into the tallying machines, but not actually getting totals. Our understanding right now is all the certified voting equipment in Pennsylvania currently has the ability to scan separately from totaling and tallying, and that totaling function occurs only when after the polls close, when the election director turns the key, enters the secret code, and pushes the total button. We drafted this so that it would, to the extent pre-election day ballot processing can occur, the county equipment has to be able to do that function. And right now they all can, but if equipment would change in the future, that would be one of the protections we were looking for to make sure information wasn't released prematurely. We settled on a 14-day window prior to election day to process ballots, optional at the discretion of the individual counties. One of the things we heard and we know about Pennsylvania is all the counties are very different and what they experience is different. So the way this is drafted, it would be at the county's option to begin counting as much as 14 days prior to election day, but they could do a shorter period if they chose to do so, with the goal of having all of the ballots counted, all of the votes counted by the end of election day. We put in the statute that if you believed you could not get all of your mail-in and absentee ballots processed and counted by 11 p.m. on election day, then you could avail yourself of this earlier pre-processing time period. With that, we included the free 8-hour notice that already exists on counting ballots, that the county would have to give notice. All the people who would participate in and watch vote counting on election day would be invited and allowed to be present at the pre-ballot processing so that you have the same witness procedure, all of that. Obviously, we, again, there was some concern about release of information in advance. We think the equipment can prevent that. In addition, we added a penalty that if it was disclosed improperly, that the person who did the disclosure would be guilty of a first-degree misdemeanor, which is 5 years in prison, up to 5 years in prison, and up to $10,000 in fines. So hopefully that also would be a deterrent to any kind of leaking or premature disclosure. Once the processed, they would be locked. They would be secured in locked and sealed containers in a locked, secure area at election headquarters, and otherwise be stored the way any other ballots are stored during the processing of ballots before and after an election. We looked at all 50 states, what they were doing with this, how they were doing this, and probably a third of the states are allowing this type of procedure to include the scanning, but not the tallying. Not to call anybody out in particular, but Georgia just adopted a procedure like this. So I think that's, whether that's persuasive or not, depending on your view of Georgia's election laws, there's that. But generally the idea is to allow the counties the ability to process beforehand, ensuring that everything is secure, everything is protected, and that you can get people totals soon after the election, if not the night of election day, the next day, so that you can alleviate some of those concerns that we heard in November 2020 about why is this taking so long to count things, and what are people doing, and numbers are being released that say one thing, and then 12 hours later, numbers are going the other way, which just creates a lot of confusion, and for some individuals helped reinforce the notion that something untoward was going on. So we tried to make this a very single issue that simply allows the processing to be secure, but to also get those vote numbers out as expeditiously as possible, and leaving it at the discretion of the counties as to how much time they needed. Looking at the 2020 mail-in numbers, and obviously I think that was probably a zenith of number of ballots that are sent absentee and mail-in. Well, I know historically, but I also think moving into the future. Yeah, there were counties that had maybe 800 mail-in ballots, and maybe they could process them in a day and get them all done. But then you had ones who had, tens of thousands of ballots. And so giving them a window in advance to do that, otherwise following all the appropriate procedures. So that's the proposition. The remainder of the report is the other state research we did to support the draft. And then we have tried to look at what's going on in Pennsylvania currently, did a quick analysis of all the legislation that's been introduced thus far this session. We counted 63 bills, and that did not include stuff that was purely municipal. So obviously there's a lot of interest in general. And we also looked at the significant cases coming out of the 2020 election to see where their interpretations would apply to the election law next time we have an election. Obviously, primary has come and gone, but where the law, the written statutory law still remains. There were extraordinary exceptions made by the executive and the judiciary, but we wanted to look at those cases and see if they permanently change the law. So there's analysis of that, and a short chapter on lessons coming out of those cases that would probably apply moving forward, where proposed legislation to clean up some of the ambiguities those cases created could be done in the future, that this group could look at down the road. But for today, for right now, we want to get your input, any suggested changes, but overall approval of the pre-election day ballot processing proposal and authorization to release the report under Act 12. We're to release a report every year at the end of the fiscal year. And as I'm sure all of you are quite aware from other issues you're dealing with relating to the budget, that's coming up really fast. So we want to get your support for the legislative proposal, and then your authorization to release the report. So if anybody has any questions about the legislative proposal that I didn't touch on, it's 3 or 4 pages long. It's not massive. We tried not to step outside the bounds of the pre-election day ballot processing and get into other areas that would require further debate and further consideration, which we may again end up doing 3 months from now. But for this piece, we tried to make it as tight and clean as possible to allow this kind of processing.
All right.
So
Okay.
that's what I got.
All right, thank you, Yvonne. I'll ask if you have comments, if you could just hit the hand raise But I will give Representative Diamond an opportunity. I know the House is going to be in session at 10:30, I believe. So, and I know the Senate is in session as well. So that's why Senator Tartaglione is not with us. So I don't know if Fred is going to have to leave as well. So I do want to give them both the opportunity to respond in case they need to jump off early.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yvonne, can you just tell me, just for the edification of everybody who's watching this publicly as well,
Sure.
the rundown of the average kind of pre-canvassing time that we've seen from other states and what is in the recommendation of the report, just so the public knows here.
Absolutely. We, the longest period where you can do, everybody cites California as the longest, which is not true from the perspective we're looking at, because they really only allow opening envelopes and comparing signatures 29 days in advance. They actually don't let counting happen until around 15 days in advance. There are states that allow 1 day before, and some that are 7 days. 14 to 15 days seem to be the most common among the larger states. And one of the things we try to do is look at states that are comparable in size to Pennsylvania to see, because they're going to be dealing with volumes more similar to ours than, say, Wyoming. So we came up with that average. One of the things that came out of our last discussions with some of our county election directors felt that for their counties, a few days just would not be sufficient. So we made it a maximum of 14, but it could be as little as 2 or 3. If you're in a county that doesn't get a lot of mail-in ballots and you don't expect to have a lot, you could even decide to count them all on election day. So we wanted to build that kind of flexibility in, but overall that seemed to be the sweet spot from what we could see.
And just quickly as a follow-up,
Sure.
is that encompassing all the states who take all the steps that this report is proposing for Pennsylvania, all the way up to releasing the tally?
Yep, there's like, I'm gonna pull it out of my memory, but I've been working on this a lot of late. I think there are 16 that will let you do everything from opening to scanning. There are probably a dozen states who won't let you do anything. And then the others are kind of an in-between. You can do some steps, but not the other steps. But we identified 16 that will let you do the whole thing from start to finish. And let me take a quick look here. I mean, I can tell you some of the, because I have Georgia on my mind now. Somebody should write a song about that. My jokes are going over dead air. Okay. Let's see, who else does that? Not Texas. Florida lets you do that. Illinois, Ohio will let you do it into the equipment if the equipment allows you to scan without tabulating, which is one of the things we tried to put in here as a proviso. Like I said, Georgia added that, but very adamant about no tallying, but everything else, including the scanning, was acceptable. Arizona and Colorado are pretty lenient. Indiana just changed their statute, and now they're saying 3 days before, and you can't do it completely, but they are moving towards a little more leeway there. I think those are probably the most representative. When you start getting into the smaller states, I just don't know how representative they are. Virginia, I think Virginia also lets you do it. So, but that's where they are. We looked at the 10 largest, most populous states from, who's most comparable to Pennsylvania. And I believe out of those 10, we actually looked at 9 because we don't look at Pennsylvania, but I believe 6 of those states allow the processing through the scanning, but no tallying. And I did just get a suggestion from somebody else that we could also add a provision to the election code to say, make scanning without tallying an explicit requirement for any voting system certified in the Commonwealth. And that makes sense. Again, it's another protection if the voting systems would change down the road to make sure everybody's capable of doing that. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sembach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up on Representative Diamond's point, given the wide variety of timelines in other states as it relates to pre-canvassing, I think it would be very important to look at the other requirements that they have. And it's pretty varied across the board as well. Things that are required to accept the ballot, to open the ballot, some signature requirements are out there as well. So I think all of that's extremely important. And then also to emphasize Jonathan Marks's point through the chat, and as you just noted, the question on scanning, I think, will be key, because there are 2 separate and distinct positions on scanning, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea to do the scanning. And I think that's something we should really have a discussion on. Also, I would recommend that if we're going to do pre-canvassing, that we add in 2 additional requirements, one of which is not in the current law, which is a requirement to have delivery to the election officials of all the ballots by 2 a.m. the next day. Some of the legislative proposals have included that, and I think it would be extremely helpful to do that here. Second, under the current law, I believe it's 3 days, the option when to begin pre-canvassing. I'll defer to Jonathan Marks and the attorneys on that. But on the 3 days, I would strongly recommend that if we're going to do pre-canvassing, that we take it to 9 a.m. the day after the election, so that truly it is starting early, whatever the timeline may be, and whatever additional recommendations we may make for making sure the chain of custody and the security of ballots is in there. And lastly, kind of a minor point, I understand the interest on changing the name from pre-canvassing. I'm not an attorney, but I would give a big caution. If you don't catch them all when you're doing a name change, it's going to create a problem down the road. So is it worth the effort to do a name change unless you make sure that you dot all the I's and cross all the T's? And working in the General Assembly, that's something that is always a discussion item. And I have seen more than one bill enacted in the law where, even though everybody thought the I's are dotted and the T's crossed, they really weren't. So thank you for the opportunity to make comments.
Couple quick responses. Yes, in fact, in the election code, there's a cross-reference that's wrong that came in either in Act 77 or Act 12, which we've corrected in our draft proposal. It's an internal cross-reference, wrong section number. So we know that kind of stuff happens all the time. As to the term pre-canvassing, We did a word search. We looked for everywhere pre-canvassing came up, and it really only came up in the 1,300 sections. And then we did a search on canvassing to make sure where canvassing is talked about, it was clear whether it meant to include the ballot processing procedure as well as the general canvassing. So we did try to do that, very, very acutely aware of how important that is. But that was one of the nicer things about the term pre-canvassing itself, is it really came into being with either 77 or 12, and it only showed up in those amendments. So no, I totally get it. I mean, we're still trying to get, and not worse to anybody, but we're still trying to get mental health and intellectual disability everywhere that it says mental health and mental retardation. And we've been doing that for probably 10 years with our statutes. And as to the other issues about what you're actually doing during the ballot processing, with the signature verification, with the notice and cure, with all those other issues that are related to that, we did not touch them purposefully, because we really wanted to just be able to say, yes, it can be done, no, it can't be done, with the idea, understanding that other legislation is going to be introduced that addresses those issues that we've seen coming out of, in particular, the House state government hearings. And we're also anticipating, expecting that our next steps be to sit down and look at all of those related issues. How do we look at signatures when we open envelopes? How do we verify signatures if that's what we're going to do? What are going to be the parameters for notice to cure? Because there are specific models of language of how you do notice to cure. And in some states, it's a very formalized process. And so that's something we would like to bring back to you guys as we move forward, to then look at those other side issues that are going to impact it. And I don't mean to be dismissive of them at all, because they're very significant. But the goal with this is just to say, however you're doing it, you can do it during this time period with the full expectation that those unresolved issues about what you're doing with these ballots when you're processing will have legislative responses in the future, if that is helpful at all. But that's where we were looking.
I see Commissioner Deely has her hand raised, and then Mr. Marks.
Good morning. So I just wanted to make a few comments. Obviously, I like the idea of the optional time window. Of course, for Philadelphia, we would love to see more than 14 days. But I believe that making it optional for the counties is probably the most common sense way to do this. And also on the previous comments, we certainly would like to see just a clean bill that deals with just the pre-canvassing or whatever we're going to call it of these mail-in ballots. I just wanted to make a point on page 25, section 4.3a, when we talk about the storage, it says in the case of absentee and mail-in ballots processed during the time allowed, that the ballots they shall be locked and sealed in a tamper-proof container and secured in a locked, secure location. I just think that we need to flesh that out a little bit, just so that we are not overburdening counties with having to get some kind of special container for these ballots, locked and sealed and tamper-proof, present to be used ballot boxes that have a seal on them that we put on them. But this locked and sealed tamper-proof container, I think we need to flesh that out so it doesn't become some unfunded mandate for the counties. That's just one thing that I noticed. And then at the end, when we get down to page 21, section D, it says elector shall be rejected by the canvasser in brackets, and then it says Board of Election. I believe it should say Board of Elections.
Gotcha.
And I just thank you for your work. And again, I think that the optional is really, that's the break for everybody. And I also think that we should be concentrating on a clean bill just about the pre-canvas, and the other issues, the side issues, signature and curing can all be addressed at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Marks.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say I concur with Mr. Sembach on putting sort of a deadline for counties to start the canvassing. That is, whether it's on election day or some other date, as opposed to allowing them to start up to 3 days after election day. I think, if we're trying to address the perception and we're trying to address the issue of ballots coming in and being tabulated, days after an election, I think putting some sort of deadline on there by which counties have to begin, whether they use the entire time allotted or not, having them start by a specific date that either before the election or on election day, I think is important.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. Pat, Andy, I'm not sure who had their hand raised first. I'm sorry, I missed that. You guys can arm wrestle for it? Or...
I'm not arm wrestling Andy. I think I'll just reiterate a point that's already been made, which is that there are a family of issues that, and Yvonne, I'll say I very much appreciate that you guys tried to keep this as specific as possible, right? Single issue, really just the timeline that the counties have. And the other issues are very significant, right? I mean, the number of ballots being set aside for missing dates is in the thousands statewide. Ballots coming back without secrecy envelopes is in the thousands. Ballots coming back without signatures is in the thousands. And the cure affidavit you mentioned, yeah, a lot of other states provide that option to make sure that as few people are tripping over those steps as possible. But I realize some of those things require more conversation than others. The cure affidavit, for example, I'm sure we would talk much more about perhaps than the date or the secrecy envelope. So if we can get to the other family of issues, quickly, promptly at some point, I think that's quite important. But I think the proposal you put in front of us makes a great deal of sense, and I'll especially defer to the election professionals and county folks on the call here for the mechanics of how this would work properly.
All right, thank you, Pat. Andy.
Yeah, I echo a lot of the sentiments expressed so far. One thing that we had touched on, and I think it was Mr. Wenger who touched on it, with regard to the secrecy envelopes, whether they're used and whether there are markings, identifying markings on them. In this iteration here at the bottom of page 24, what section is it here? It talks about, still being declared null and void if there are markings on them. I know it was mentioned about, deeming it a waiver of privacy if someone, we allow for the secrecy envelope, but if someone just out of ignorance, probably inadvertence, puts their name or some kind of marking on there, their vote is automatically null and void. I really think that's something we should look at as a service to voters who don't read these things and aren't going to know that. And we saw it a lot. And there's just no, I don't think, real policy-based reason to declare those null and void if someone just voluntarily or inadvertently puts their name on their secrecy envelope and doesn't care. I just think that's something we should really consider working in here in a recommendation, because it's just overly harsh, I think, as it stands.
My goal with this group is to at our next meeting to start talking about all of those issues. The secrecy envelopes, the naked envelopes, the inadvertent marks, the postmarks, all of those extra things that are out there. In truth, our goal right now was to write something that would pass, and as clean and concise as we could make it, to get it to pass, because we know these other issues are going to be more divisive and they're going to engender more debate, and we're going to have more back and forth on how we would write those provisions. So though I completely understand why you would want to do that, my goal, my staff's goal is to start this group off with a winner. And I think as short and sweet as we can make it, makes it more palatable to be enacted, and would get us moving in the right direction towards further cleanup of the election code. So yeah, absolutely significant cluster, as Pat said, a family of issues, and that's where we want to go next. Hopefully our next meeting, we're going to sit down with you and say, okay, here are all of these related issues. Here's what Pennsylvania says we should do right now, and here are some of the options we found to deal with them, and get that conversation rolling. Yeah, I get it, but I'm also trying to get the counties 2 weeks to count their ballots. Now, one of the things, I'm not sure who said it now, about setting a deadline to start counting. Honestly, didn't see that. If you all agree that that's something to be done, we certainly can add that to the proposal, to say that if they don't take advantage of the pre-election day period, that they must start on election day, or something like that. So again, you're dealing with that, get those numbers, get those counts in on election day. Don't drag it out for a week and make people crazy. So yeah. Okay.
Jonathan, you have your hand up.
I think Mr. Christmas has the floor, doesn't he? Is he waiting for Andy to? I was just gonna, and this is, I guess I'm playing devil's advocate, or at least presenting the other side of the issue on the markings on the secrecy envelopes. There are valid historical reasons to have those provisions in place to preserve the secrecy. Whether they're relevant anymore or not, but we want to be careful with the language, and certainly not encourage the practice. You know, there have been the reason those provisions are there, you know, based on my research and my understanding historically, is that you know, there have been occasions in the past where employers or unions or some other organization has, you know, whether it's paying people to vote a certain way, or you know, strong arming them, whatever, you know, those provisions were put in place for those reasons. As I said, whether they're relevant anymore or not, I don't know. But it might be something, if we're going to craft language or allow that, it can't be too subjective. Number one, you need to have some sort of objective criterion. And number two, we certainly don't want to encourage it so that people are putting identifying marks on the ballot. I think what Andy's concern was, and I agree with it, is people who put stray marks, or they, you know, they're drinking their coffee and you end up with like a coffee stain on the corner of the envelope. Certainly, we don't want to disenfranchise people for inadvertent marks, but we also don't want to encourage you know, identifying marks that would put the secrecy of the ballot at risk.
Great. Andy, he's got his hand back up.
Yeah, I guess just to clarify, I agree that those sentiments, everything's well taken. I just think we don't want to encourage it, which I understand. I guess the question that I have is, do we want to punish it? Which is what declaring it void does. That's kind of what I saw. I think I relayed this to the group last time, was people who said things like, my name's Andy and boy, I really want my vote to count. Please call me at this number to verify that it happened. And we had multiple of those, not making that up. And we had a lot of those. And it was just absolutely heartbreaking to set that aside, and for no really good reason. And that's something I would like to see addressed. I get that it's not going to be a huge number of ballots at issue here, but boy, it just doesn't seem to me to make much sense. And if a waiver is a possibility, I really think that I feel pretty strongly that should be considered.
All right, Commissioner Deely.
So everybody knows I'm against having the secrecy envelope at all, but I would certainly agree that, inadvertent marks not counting people's votes because of them, it is certainly something that we definitely should look at. I just, again, would like to reiterate that I think this should go in clean just about the canvas, and we should discuss and deal with these other issues, which are equally, or if not even more important, when it comes to disenfranchising people's votes for, honest mistakes or marks is crazy. And I also think that 9 a.m. the day after election should be the latest you could start to re-canvass. Thanks.
Yeah. I think, inadvertent marks and identifying marks are two different things. We kind of use them, but so I would definitely think that needs to be looked at. But certainly, to Jonathan's point, a little scribble or something should not be used as a way to go. So that I agree. Do we have any other comments from board members or questions or concerns?
Mr. Chairman, I have one comment.
Please.
We've had some discussion on the possibility of having that deadline 9 a.m. the day after. Would it be prudent to perhaps hash out where the rest of the board is at? I've heard only supporting comments, so I'm curious to see if anyone would be opposed to that, and if we'd like to adopt that in this year's report.
Yeah, I would certainly support the 9 a.m. I think that's more than reasonable and important. So that would be my vote.
I think thematically it would fit in with what we've done here. So from a drafting perspective, I have no objections to putting that in there at all. I think it's very relevant to the whole concept of processing the ballots, so, and the time frame in which it occurs. So from our perspective, it makes sense that it would fit with this.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Fred.
Rather than redrafting by committee, because we're so large, maybe it would make more sense for you to appoint a subcommittee. And I would strongly recommend that there be numerous local election officials on that subgroup, whatever you want to call it, to take this discussion and further vet it. And then in the interim, I understand the desire to get a report out, but perhaps it would be better to take out the legislative recommendations for now until a smaller group can come back with some more focused recommendations. And to add to that, Representative Diamond noted at the beginning that the House is on the verge of making recommendations for election code changes. And I'm guessing that pre-canvassing will be on that list because it's on everyone's list. And hopefully soon, the Senate bipartisan special committee will also be releasing some recommendations. So rather than rushing today and putting out recommendations that could be not helpful to the overall process. Perhaps it would be better to take these legislative recommendations out for now, have a small working group, refine them, come back to the full group and see if they can be added in at some point in the future.
All right, thank you, Fred. Amy, I see you have your hand raised. Do you want to respond to?
I just wanted to say that I think that the report as it was presented to us, is, like you said, it's clean, it's straight to the point. It's very critically necessary. And I do want to get into the nitty gritty about ballots that are being rejected and what they're being rejected for. Those things are very, very important. But the longer we go without having this in statute, the harder you are making our lives. So, you know, I think that everything that's in the report, if you want to add, you know, a requirement to start the canvas, I think that's totally fine. I can absolutely see a solid reason for doing that, but I don't think that much has to be played around with here. I think we kind of hit the nail on the head. We kept it clean. I don't think we should be worrying about adding additional provisions. I don't think there's really anything that needs to be taken out from it. You know, if you want to have results in a timely manner and you want to alleviate some of the workload that has been placed on the election officials' shoulders, I think we should move with this report quickly, as there are a lot of bills getting introduced. So it's kind of prudent that we let the legislature know where we stand.
A couple of responses generally. I think the subcommittee approach is perfectly appropriate and probably the reasonable response to these ancillary issues. Like Andy has a lot to say about marks on ballots, and so these cluster of issues could easily be divided into subcommittees to come up with specific language moving forward. But as to what we've drafted right now, obviously I feel it's fine and it's appropriate to move forward with it. We have to remember we're a bipartisan body, we're a separate independent body. And so although the House Republicans may do one thing and the Senate Government Committee may do another thing, our role is to produce bipartisan consensus-based recommendations. And so I understand that there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a couple bills out there right now that talk about how much time for ballot processing should be allowed. But our responsibility and our charge as an independent board is to present what this group feels is the best possible response to serve the citizens of Pennsylvania from a bipartisan perspective. So certainly other people more powerful and more well situated are going to come in and have opinions and suggest legislation. But from our perspective, this report coming forward is, look, we looked at this. We think this is a simple solution to one tiny aspect of what's been going on. You know, aside from my ego issues, I do think that this is something that we can release and encourage someone to introduce, whoever that may be, as a solution that tries to stay out of the politics of it. And because that's my job, is to stay out of the politics. And this committee is bipartisan for a reason. So yeah, that's kind of my response. But I do think on a number of these related issues, it gets very complicated, and it gets into the nitty gritty. And I would be happy to work with subcommittees drafting language to address those individual issues as we move forward. So that's what I got.
Yeah, and if I can just chime in there also. The Act 12 requires that a report be released by the end of the fiscal year. So that's what, 20 days from now. I don't know that a whole lot can be done between now and then with this particular report. And I mean, there's going to be a report next year and a report the year after that. And so there's certainly ample time off into the future to try to pull into certain, the details. And the other thing to remember is that these are recommendations that the General Assembly can, and I say this not necessarily for the people on this board, but for the public or anybody, who's observing. These are recommendations, so the General Assembly is free to take them and use them, or obviously come up with their own. These are not. This isn't any formal action of the legislature that that this board is taking. So all of these things can be worked out. Hopefully they'll pull from this report parts that they want to use, but they're certainly under no requirement to do so. So I just want to put those two things out there, that we are looking at a June 30 deadline for this edition in this series of reports, and also that these are recommendations.
All right, I see Jonathan and then Randall.
Yeah, I wanted to, I think the report does a good, I wanted to remind folks, at the top of page 4, the language was inserted specifically to give folks, I won't say cover, but to make the point. It says, while the recommendations in this report are the consensus of the members, it should not be assumed by the reader that the agreement was unanimous. If it gives folks, a greater comfort level, maybe some, language can be added that, while there's a consensus on the solution, perhaps there wasn't unanimity, on every point in the, what ultimately became the consensus. But I think that, that certainly gave me a level of comfort when reading it and signing off on this, to know that we're not agreeing that everything in this report, every single person in this committee agreed with. That's not the point of this. So.
Thank you, Jonathan. That's very accurate, and thank you for pointing that out, because that is something we try to let people know is, every detail wasn't agreed by every single person. So thank you. Oh, Randall, wasn't it next? I'm sorry. I think I stepped on you, Randall.
That's okay. Thank you, Yvonne. I would be, I think we're better off releasing what we have here. It is the possible, may not be the perfect. And quite frankly, you probably wouldn't all agree with what I thought was the perfect anyway, more importantly, but I think it does meet, as Jonathan discussed, a consensus. I will throw out there one thing that election directors detested about Act 77 was that it stripped away much of the safety margin that existed in elections by the moved deadlines and the timeline when things have to happen. If and when we get to the point of discussing when you must start pre-canvassing, if the goal, having delayed election results and more importantly, changing election results is problematic to the public. And even waiting to let them begin the day after, you're assuming everything's going to work. You're assuming that the central scanners are going to work. You're assuming the ballots they're scanning are going to work. You're making assumptions that may or may not be based on reality. And so I wouldn't say you'd have to do them all, but I don't know whether CCAP would have any objection to, even requiring at least you begin on Friday to verify stuff's going to work so that you can have your results out by, 11 o'clock election night. And CCAP might be a good, entity to bounce that off of, Yvonne. Again, I don't think that should hold up our releasing of this report, but making, for stuff you may or may not have done may or may not have fully been able to test before the election, and obviously logic and accuracy is done or is supposed to be done. But certain aspects of that you're going to have it for the time you're doing it with an audience is the first time you're doing it in that cycle, and that should be something that we're not waiting till the last minute to have folks begin, because those delayed results create that public crisis of the confidence of the election. So again, I would defer to CCAP somewhat on there, but I wouldn't be troubled by requiring counties at least to begin on Friday. That doesn't mean they have to work through the weekend, but at least you get you've started it and stuff's going to run, so that if there's a problem, hopefully you can have it solved by election day. So anyway, I'll throw that out, but I would not think that the putting that in or adding those recommendations should delay this report.
Well, and that's something too. If we if we release this and then on further discussion and further reflection, we say, hey, oh yeah, we should have done that too. There's nothing to say we can't come back to this issue and modify it in future reports and future recommendations and proposals. So yeah, rather than try to have a full debate on starting Friday, which makes sense to me, but something we haven't talked about at all before, put that on the list for next time to talk about and see where we are. And I think the next election will, assuming we can get the pre-canvassing passed, the first election that, I'm going to be an optimistic, the first election that occurs after the pre-canvassing amendments that we're proposing have taken effect will show us how effective this expanded time period is. And if there are still delays, if there are still issues, then we come back and we say, okay, this worked, but it didn't work perfectly. And here are some more recommendations to fine tune it as we move forward. So guys are giving me a big to-do list for the next meeting, but that's cool. That's what we're here for. So.
All right, Pat, I'm going to skip over you for my vice chair, Commissioner Cant. Sorry, then we'll come back to you, Pat.
Well, good morning, everyone. Sorry for my tardiness this morning. Things happen sometimes that we can't control, but it's good to be with you. I just wanted to share thoughts as Randy was talking there about the start date, having a definite start date for pre-canvass. The only reason I would speak against that is as a smaller county where we can process, even in November last year, all of our ballots in 6 hours or less. While pre-canvass is something I've continued to fight for all of our counties, especially our larger and mid-sized counties, it's not necessarily something that a smaller county will need 2 weeks. And while I don't want to take that away from our larger counties, I also don't want to tie the smaller counties down to a specific date and time, because there are things that happen in smaller counties that larger counties might not think of. And some of that is personnel related. In a small county where we only have 2 election employees full-time, a lot of the pre-canvassing is going to depend on when we can get our volunteers or voluntolds to help us. So that's an important facet that we might not think of. And, it may be the Friday before, but it also may be Monday, the day before the election, just whatever it is that we can do it before election day so we can focus 100% of our attention on election day live and in person on that Tuesday.
That's why we tried to make the period variable.
Pat.
Thanks, Ken. I was just going to reiterate Randall's comments. I fully agree. I think it's pretty important that we go ahead and get this draft out there because it makes the point that of all the states that are out there, especially the big states where a lot of people vote by mail, a 14-day timeline is right in there. And currently we're the outlier among those big states, and with such a large portion of the electorate that's casting mail-in ballots. I think it's already been made clear how many other issues, big and small, this board may need to address, just related to mail-in ballots that are coming into these offices. Now, I actually, Fred makes an excellent point in that I think something we really need to do sooner rather than later, with, and not just with the other family of issues, but with everything else that we take on with the board, is to bring in the other election directors and some of the other county commissioners, but especially the election directors. Since Amy's the only one currently in the job, and Randall's taken on other duties more recently, and the specifics of these reforms very much matter. So for somewhere down the line, again, hopefully sooner rather than later, we can bring in some of those election directors and hear from them too. Thanks.
We can invite guests to talk to us and present information. We don't hold formal hearings, but we can have informational sessions and have people come in and tell us what their problems are. And then if we have a different subcommittee on different issues, we can invite some election officials to come meet with that subcommittee and discuss their issues and ways they would fix the statute to deal with that. So that is certainly, I mean, our goal is to move into the next step being part of the whole mail-in ballot issue and get into the individual detailed issues that are, so yeah, that all works fine for moving forward. It's part of why we tried to make this as tight and not overlapping with anything else, is to just get this option to the counties so they have the ability to get started in advance and make it a flexible period depending on what the county needs. So yeah, and I've said that a few times, and I'll say it 6 more or 10 more, whoever wants to hear from me. Yeah, we have a lot of work ahead of us, but this seemed like something that was pressing, that needed to be dealt with much sooner rather than later, and one that there seemed to be very close to universal agreement on generally, that that we could reach some consensus on it. Some of these other issues, I suspect, we're going to be butting heads, but that's okay. That's part of being a advisory board / think tank kind of group requires. So, but yeah, we definitely do that.
Jonathan, then Dan.
Yeah, just real quick. New Mexico kind of maybe points us in the right direction here. We could tie the deadline, the requirement for the start of pre-canvass, to the amount of ballots that the county or the jurisdiction receives, so that you can keep that flexibility there while still having a sort of a date certain by which counties have to start if they have a substantial number of ballots or ballots above. I think New Mexico, it's on page 14. I believe 10,000 ballots is the threshold. If you have more than that, you have to start 2 weeks out. If you have less than 10,000, you can wait until 5 days before the election. So we could look at maybe New Mexico and craft language that would allow different options depending on the volume of ballots.
We thought about that. There's also another state, I can't think which one off the top of my head, that is a little vaguer in that more vague, I don't think vaguer is a word, where they just say you can determine when you start based on the volume of mail-in ballots you sent out. So, and it leaves it at that. And we kind of went back and forth. Should we try to do something like that? But for reasons I can't really tell you now, decided not to put it in this particular draft, which again does not mean to say that as we move forward, we can't make that recommendation as well. Kind of intuitively, I would think the election directors I know would look to that anyway. How many have we got out? How many do we think we're going to get, and make that estimate based on that. But we didn't formalize it in the language, but I think that's something we could certainly look at moving down the road.
Yes, and I apologize for making more work for you, Yvonne.
Oh, it's fine. That's why they pay me. And this is fun. I like my job. I can retire, and I haven't yet because this is fun. And won't say anything more about what that says about my mental state. So there was somebody else who wanted to talk, wasn't there?
Dan, and then Commissioner Deely.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Lawrence. I have two quick comments, and then I'm in a position, I'm prepared to make a motion if I'm in order. But first of all, I do appreciate very much Mr. Christmas's suggestion relative to consultation with election directors. As a county commissioner, I know this much about elections. My election director knows this much about elections. And I think that's true throughout the Commonwealth. So I greatly appreciate his recommendation. The second comment is, since I have the floor, I'm going to be very brief. Perhaps for future discussion toward the end of this meeting, I'd like for consideration to be given, if it's appropriate, for future meetings of this group to, again, if at all possible, to have an option of those members who so desire in person. But maybe that's something we can kick around either later today or at a future point in time. But like many people, I'm really getting zoomed out. And things are loosening up. We're having our live meetings out here, and I would hope we could be able to do that at some point in time. Finally, and I do understand there's someone after me who wishes to comment, but at this point, I would like to make a motion that the board approve the proposed draft legislation relative to the creation of a pre-election day period of time to allow for the processing of absentee and mail-in ballots as submitted. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor. I'll ask for a second for it, and we can continue with discussion.
Second that.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's continue with discussion. Commissioner Deely, you did have your hand up. It's down now. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if you, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was actually going to second the motion,
Okay.
but I first wanted to say that I thought the original proposal was 9 a.m. the day after Election Day, which I thought was reasonable to help get the results in a timely manner, which makes everybody feel better about it. But I don't want to be in a position where we're forcing smaller counties to start earlier if they don't have to.
Okay.
But I also second that motion.
All right. Is there further comment? All right. Hearing none, then I guess we can take a vote. Why don't we do that by raising your hand in the function there?
How do I do it? No.
Don't raise your hand, Fred.
Okay.
Don't raise your hand. And I will note that that Representative Diamond expressed, we'll count him as a no as well.
Commissioner, how do I raise my hand? I'm trying to raise it. I can't. I don't have it on my screen.
Look under reactions, and if you hit that, and then there's a couple of emoticons there. Yep, you can do the thumbs up, but all right, has everyone figured out how to raise their hand if they have chosen to do so?
And just to clarify, you're calling for yes votes at this point, right?
We're calling for yes votes.
Okay.
And we could then ask people to lower their hands and then call for no votes if you want to do it that way, if that makes it easier for Wendy. All right, Wendy, let me know when
I'm good.
you're good. Okay, so now I will ask, lower your hand. Everyone lower their hand. And then raise your hand for a no vote, please.
Or physically raise your hand if you cannot find your
Or
hand.
that's Commissioner Vogler made a good point about Zoom meetings, because we could just do this with an eye or.
Got it.
Okay. All right, so I had it passing for the report to be released. So thank you. And then to Commissioner Vogler's point, I'm definitely willing to consider an in-person meeting, perhaps for our next meeting. I think it would be great if we could get together. If you would be interested also in working on a subcommittee, I would like to hear from more election directors as well, definitely. I'll talk with staff whether that has to be a part of the formal meeting or not, but I think we should definitely speak to some of our election directors and get some more ideas as we go forward on this. And then we'll also ask for feedback. When would our next meeting be proposed, or when should we meet again?
Do you have dates, Wendy?
I do have some filtered out dates. I can email them to the committee.
All right, and Wendy, if on that email as well, if you could just poll people on if they'd be willing to meet in person
Yes.
as well, that would be great. Amy, you have your hand up. I don't know if you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if you are looking for more directors to come and help, maybe with subcommittees or just to speak in general, I'm happy to be a liaison there and reach out to my colleagues. So just let me know.
I will definitely be in touch.
I will say in-person meetings are definitely my preference. I like to not be trying to find where everything is, my camera eye. I'm never looking directly in it. And so we would gladly host an in-person meeting. We have to wait until we can have people in our buildings as visitors.
Our restrictions haven't been lifted yet.
Yeah, our restrictions have not been lifted yet. But assuming our restrictions end up being lifted here soon, and I think we could all be in the conference room, Wendy?
I think so.
Yeah, that we would try to hold an in-person here in our offices, in our conference room. And if you come to that, we'll even give you lunch. So, because that would be an all-day meeting. Or well, the equivalent of an all-day meeting. Normally we try to do 10 to 3, which gives people who are coming from more of a distance more time for traveling, or if they're using the train or whatever. But, oh yeah, I am so ready to meet in person with people that would gladly try to do that.
You know, and I would say too, that I think hybrid can become even more difficult and more disjointed then. So, you know, if we can't get a bulk in person, that I think it's got to be one way or the other. I think we've either got to commit to going in person, or if we don't have enough doing virtual. But I think a hybrid would put a lot on the staff, and would also make it more disjointed too. If some people are in the room then and some people are on a computer screen. Mr. Marks, you did have your hand up. It's down now. So just want to make sure you're good. Okay. Commissioner Deely.
Oh, do we have a balloting processing center that we could meet at? Is that what you just said? I'm sorry, Commissioner, you're really breaking up. If you could just put that in an email, I can be responsive to that then. I can't hear what you're saying. Sorry.
It's faint, but I think she's proposing a field trip maybe to
Ah.
see the Philadelphia Ballot Processing Center. So
Well, we have done field trips, so you have to have a partner, no wandering off, stay with the group, but we'll be there. I'm just like happy now because you guys made me happy. You liked what we came up with, so life is good. And we'll get this prepared and ready to be released as soon as possible. Obviously, you'll all get your own personal copies and we'll take it from there. But thank you.
all right. Well, with that, I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Jim Smith, so moved.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. Is there a second? All right,
Second.
second, Commissioner Deely. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Raise your
Aye.
hand.
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much for your time. We'll talk soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.